Discover the incredible moment when a desperate woman's voice revealed a heartfelt proposal. Sarah's heart raced as the letter trembled in her hands, the crisp, white envelope testimony to a life she had long abandoned. Words swirled around in her mind: inheritance, property, family. It was hard to reconcile this with the woman who had spent years scraping by, juggling waitressing shifts at the diner and cleaning houses, feeling the pinch of every dime. But hope flickered, just like the weak glow of the overhead light in their little apartment. Along with that hope, dread spun in her stomach. Confronting the specter of her father, a man she hadn't spoken to in years, felt like opening a wound that had never properly healed. As dusk settled, a weight settled over her as well. There were whispers of her estranged father's former business partner, Tom, threading through her thoughts. The man who had driven her family into despair now loomed like a storm cloud, ready to rain on any dreams she dared to awaken. She clenched her fists, the uncertainty tearing at her insides. Could she face him? The little energy she had was sapped by worry over the public hearing. Was it enough to reclaim her family's legacy, or were her aspirations just a flickering ember in the shadow of his icy gaze? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notification from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Through it all, Lily's laughter bubbled up like a fresh stream, cutting through Sarah's worries and filling their cramped space with life. Yet, every giggle was bittersweet, a reminder of what she was fighting for. Alone in the dim kitchen over a too-small table, Sarah flicked open her sketchpad. After years of silencing that part of herself, it felt vulnerable yet exhilarating. Jack, the historian, had seen her flickering spirit and encouraged her to paint again. The conversations with him were laced with something more than just shared interests. They hovered at the precipice of something new. But then back to the hearing looming in the distance, she felt herself slide back into doubt. As she stood before the board, a cacophony of whispers washed over her, and her breathing quickened. The weight of their gazes felt like chains, each one a reminder of her precarious position. Even this moment, the adrenaline, the potential the room buzzed with skepticism, a dangerous undercurrent that threatened to sweep her away. What if they dismissed her? What if they saw her as just another single mother struggling too hard against the tide? Someone with dreams too grand for her reality. But at the critical moment, just as doubt threatened to choke her words, Jack moved closer, his voice steady amidst the chaos. He spoke of her journey, her tenacity, and the right she had to reclaim her inheritance. Their eyes locked, a lifeline amongst crushing uncertainty. And just when Sarah felt the dam of her emotions crack, ready to spill over, she glanced toward Tom, the back of the room, his cold stare like a blade carving through her resolve. The shadows of the past danced before her, and she was left to navigate the tidal wave of uncertainty that threatened to drown her dreams. Would confronting that specter grant her freedom, or would it lead to yet another betrayal, another twist of fate that left her spiraling? Sarah paced in her small living room, each step echoing the chaos in her mind. The letter felt heavy in her pocket, a constant reminder of the decision looming over her. She glanced at Lily, oblivious in her world of crayons and paper, lost in a drawing that almost resembled the beautiful parlor she had envisioned for them. Sarah wanted that vision to be real, yet dread hung thick in the air. Her father's legacy sat waiting, bones rattling in the silence. Jack's words from earlier lingered in her thoughts, pushing her toward action. His unwavering belief in her capacity stirred something that threatened to claw its way out. She pulled the sketch pad from the table again, flipping through pages filled with half-formed ideas and crude outlines. Each drawing was a little battle fought with her own uncertainty. identifying herself again as an artist felt like slipping on a garment that had been hidden away, collecting dust. But could she really wear it again? The public hearing awaited, a daunting specter projecting visions of both triumph and disaster. If she couldn't freely speak her truth, her vision, what was the point of fighting? In that moment, defeat lingered close by, ready to pounce. Tom's face swam in her thoughts. The way he mocked her family, the downturn of his lips as he dismissed any hope of reclaiming their name. How could she reclaim something that was pawed away by hurt? Desperation ignited a fire in her chest. No one knew the depths of her struggle as intimately as she did. She wasn't just fighting for an inheritance. She was battling for the spirit of her family, a spirit buried beneath years of deception and loss. What if this hearing could be the foundation she needed to rebuild not just her mother's legacy, but her own identity? In a surge of determination, she recalled how Jack had encouraged her to channel emotions into art. Perhaps there was more hidden in those sketches than just line paper. Folding back the pages, she started experimenting with colors, breathing life into old visions. As the pigments spread and merged, her frustration melted away, replaced with clarity. She was taking control of her story in every brushstroke, a defiant act against the smothering weight of doubt and fear. The night felt electric after her outpouring. Inspired, she drafted a statement for the hearing, each word carefully penned, a foil to the resentment she felt towards Tom. This was no longer just about her family's legacy. It became a proclamation of her rebirth. The message twisted within her a reminder that she was more than just the shadows cast by past trauma. But just as she settled into the rhythm of her newfound identity, a familiar door creaked open, revealing a figure she hadn't expected. Tom stood there, time-worn but still as formidable as in her childhood memories. Their eyes locked, and she felt every ounce of resolve waver like a candle flickering in a storm. Were their words better left unspoken? Or was it time for confrontation? The moment for reclaiming her legacy had arrived. Only time would reveal whether she was prepared to seize it. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs as Tom stepped through the threshold, his presence igniting a whirlwind of emotions within her. The oppressive weight of their shared history hung heavily in the air, laden with accusations and unspoken words. She took a deep breath, trying to summon the courage she had whispered to herself through the night. "Tom," she started, her voice wavering. "What are you doing here?" He looked older, his face etched with lines that marked years of hard choices, yet his eyes retained a spark that immediately provoked conflict inside Sarah. An old part of her wanted to shrink back, to retreat into the safety of her sketchpad and crayons. But she remembered the rush of paint, the way colors bled into one another with ease, a reminder of her artistry, of her rebirth. "I came to talk," he said, his tone guarded yet oddly earnest. "About the hearing." The words struck her like thunderclap, reverberating through her. She was supposed to be reclaiming her voice, yet the thought of discussing her father's legacy with Tom felt perilous. "What did you possibly want?" she pressed, half in defiance, half in confusion. "There's more at stake here than you realize," Tom replied, stepping further into the room, crossing the invisible boundary she had erected between them. "I know we had our differences, but this isn't just about your mother's name." "Isn't it?" Sarah shot back, unable to hide the fire creeping into her words. "The lies, the shame, it all leads back to you and your decisions." His face hardened, but beneath the anger was an undercurrent of regret. "I never meant for it to end up this way." "I came to what? Soothe your conscience?" She interrupted. "You think you could just come here and make everything okay?" "I'm trying to atone," Tom blurted. "I've spent years reflecting on my past. I can help you. Together we have a chance to reshape everything." "You need support. The community needs to see unity, not division." Unity? The very notion felt like a betrayal wired to her core. Did she really want to hear what he had to offer? Inwardly, she wrestled with the turmoil. Tom was right about one thing. The community's perception weighed heavily on the upcoming hearing. But his version of support felt like a further entrapment into a life she had fought to escape. By showing up at the hearing to testify against me? She asked, skepticism sharpening her voice. Why should I trust you with my vision when you've always belittled it? Silence fell between them, thick and tangible. For a fleeting moment, the tension dissolved, and all that remained was vulnerability. Their shared childhood memories flickered in Sarah's mind. The days when her dreams felt unstoppable and Tom had been a part of them. Her bitterness was cloaked in nostalgia, a cocktail of resentment and longing. Because, Sarah, he finally whispered, I want to mend the damage I've done. I believe in what you can create, and if you let me, I can help. The proposition dangled between them, dangerous yet alluring. It was as if he was extending a lifeline, fraught with uncertainty and possibility. Sarah felt the artistry within her surge, wrestling with the notion of collaboration born for brokenness. What if accepting his help could amplify her voice rather than suppress it? What if, in this fragile moment of negotiation, she could elicit the truth from Tom and reforge her legacy? As her heart raced, she realized the path before her was fraught with peril, but also ripe with potential. Whatever decision she made next would not only define the legacy of her family, but also carve her own identity anew. Then let us talk, she finally said, her implications shifting. They would either form an alliance or crash in a conflict. But even as she spoke those words, dread settled in her stomach like a stone. Was trusting him the real victory, or merely the beginning of another betrayal? The hearing loomed closer, and with it, the ultimate test awaited. Her choice could ripple through time or shatter her dreams completely. A charged silence lingered in the air, each second stretching out as Sarah processed the immediate implications of her words. The opening of the conversation felt like a gaping chasm, and she stood at its edge, teetering between her past grievances and the delicate possibility of moving forward. Let us be clear, she said, her voice steadying as a newfound resolve flooded her mind. If we're going to discuss this, it has to be built on honesty. No more half-truths. Tom's brow furrowed as he nodded, his previous defensiveness easing just a fraction. I agree. I can't change the past, but I can tell you everything I know. Everything? She echoed, questioning the depths of his willingness. A flicker of hope ignited within her, nudging at the corners of her skepticism. Will that include the truth about my mother, about her decisions? Because I need to know if this is just an act of contrition or if it's something deeper. With a long exhale, Tom leaned against the wall, seemingly gathering strength. Your mother was damned for the decisions she made to protect you and everyone else. I never made it easy for her, and I can't pretend I didn't play a part in what happened after. But she believed in the vision you have now, even when I didn't. His admission struck her. In that moment, she felt the walls of her resentment crack ever so slightly, letting in light the clarity of her artistic path. The phrases scrawled on her sketchpad were not just aspirations. They were a call to reclaim a legacy distorted by lies, a chance for authenticity that had eluded her for too long. Tell me about your plan, she urged, now fully poised to shift the dynamic. If we're doing this, it needs to matter. I won't allow my mother's name to be tarnished further. He straightened, visibly encouraged by her challenge. We can rally support, build empathy around what this hearing is truly about. It's about demonstrating that you're your own person, not merely a reflection of your family name. Use your art. Create something that tells your parents' stories while allowing your voice to shine. Her mind whirled with images of canvases, colors swirling around truths left unpainted. It was instinctual. The thought of creating art that expressed her complicated emotions felt exhilarating. It was a calling she had almost forgotten in her anger. Art has always been my refuge, she admitted. But can we truly leverage that for this hearing? Absolutely, Tom replied, excitement weaving its way into his voice. Art can be a weapon for advocacy. You can confront the community not with anger, but with the truth and beauty of your vision. It's showing them how hurtful their assumptions have been. This is a chance for a new narrative. What if he was right? Could expressing herself through art shift perceptions and open doors she thought were sealed? Sarah felt a new purpose bloom, countering the unease twisting in her stomach. This could be the stability she craved while navigating murky waters. This is risky, she cautioned again, knowing trust was still an unknown territory between them. If I do this, I need to be sure you're committed. I understand, he agreed, his eyes unwavering. I've spent too long running from my mistakes. Now I want to stand with you. The intricacies of their relationship felt like an intricate tapestry, woven of past betrayals, but now hinting at a potential future. Could they truly collaborate without falling back into old patterns? For a fleeting second, hope seemed to coax her forward, urging her to take a leap of faith. Then let us outline the details, she announced, tapping into an unyielding spirit. We'll create a presentation together, something that conveys our truths without disguises. The decision swelled between them, a compact anchored in vulnerability and tenacity, neither one fully aware of the challenges awaiting. Each was peeling back layers ingrained by time, yet strength burgeoned where hesitation once nested. The door left ajar. Uncertainty lingered. How would their alliance be perceived? Would they be able to face the coming storm? The ultimate question loomed with an ominous weight. Was Sarah ready to risk everything to take charge of her own narrative, even if it meant confronting a past she had tried so hard to escape? With the stakes rising, she felt an exhilarating fear course through her veins. This hearing would not just redefine her future. It could become a moment that compelled her to confront the very essence of who she was: an artist, a survivor, and now, perhaps, an advocate. Every heartbeat answered the call to action, setting the stage for a decisive confrontation against the tide of her history. Yet behind every gain lay the lingering shadow of crisis. There would be no retreat now. And as a sense of dread intertwined with her newfound determination, one thought echoed in her mind: a reckoning was on the horizon, and with it, her true voice would finally be revealed. With newfound determination coursing through her veins, Sarah turned her focus inward. The enormity of her decision weighed heavily, but there was a flicker of excitement there too, like a spark igniting in dry tinder. The prospect of using her art to reclaim her narrative stirred something deep within her, a memory of why she ever started creating in the first place. As she sat at her easel that evening, surrounded by brushes and paints, her mind raced with possibilities. Thoughts of her mother's struggles, Tom's confessions, and the community's judgments collided in a chaotic swirl. What she truly needed was clarity, a vision that could transform those conflicts into a cohesive and powerful message. She dipped her brush into crimson paint, letting it glide across the canvas, allowing the strokes to tell a story of pain and perseverance. Each movement was a catharsis, an unburdening as she tapped into the emotions that had fueled so much of her life. Her mother's legacy was complex, intertwined with her own grief. A simple illustration wouldn't suffice to capture the layers of that truth. As the evening light faded, Sarah leaned back to survey her creation. It was a set of diverse images, some chaotic and fierce, others fragile and delicate. It felt like a tapestry of voices, all demanding to be heard. This was not only about her. I can honor my mother's choices, she thought, confronting the beauty in her struggles rather than crafting a narrative that painted her as a villain. But this realization also came with fear. What if the world wasn't ready to embrace these truths? Could her art, her raw honesty, withstand scrutiny? She wrestled with the thought. There could be backlash, even hostility. But alongside that fear lay a pulse of hope that pushed her to explore further, not just for herself, but for anyone who had felt misrepresented. Over the next few days, Sarah poured herself into her work. Late nights and early mornings blurred together as she mapped out the essence of her project. The public presentation would include a narrated journey through art that reflected both her life and her mother's sacrifices. It needed to tell stories woven with resilience and confrontation, songs of sorrow and triumph. Each piece would hold a mirror to the audience, compelling them to gaze not just at her canvas, but into their own hearts. Tom reappeared on the scene after a few days, curiosity etched across his face. His presence was both comforting and disconcerting. There was an unspoken agreement between them. They were both stepping into vulnerable territory. "How is it coming along?" he asked tentatively, scanning the mess of palettes and half-finished canvases scattered around. "I think I'm finding my voice," she replied, surprising herself with the conviction in her tone. "It's going to be complex, layered. It's not just about me, it's about everything she fought for." His face lit up, but she detected an underlying hint of concern among his admiration. "Are you ready for how that might be received?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy. In that moment, Sarah caught a glimpse of her insecurities surfacing again, those nagging doubts that whispered she would be challenging powerful narratives, potentially alienating people instead of drawing them in. "I have to try," she finally responded, her hands tightening around her paintbrush. The flicker of fear transformed into resolve. "If I don't reclaim this story, who will? I owe it to her and to myself." Tom nodded, but she saw the shadows of doubt sparkling in his eyes. "Just make sure you're ready for more than just criticism. There might be pushback, even anger," he cautioned, stark sincerity replacing any earlier enthusiasm. "Challenges will come, that much I know," Sarah replied thoughtfully. "But hiding from them only keeps the truth buried. My art will lay it bare." As Tom left, she pondered his caution. Should she be careful or bold? A balance seemed impossible, yet deep down, a fierce desire to be true to her journey prevailed. She needed to harness that fire and shape it into something beautiful. Days turned into nights filled with intense focus. As the date of her presentation approached, the potential consequences loomed large like storm clouds on the horizon. Would she be able to hold firm against the incoming tide? And as that thought settled in her mind, a new sense of urgency rose within her. The upcoming confrontation with her history and the community, her mother's legacy, hanging in the balance, was inevitable. The more she prepared, the clearer it became. The moment was near when she would face the truth head-on. As she mixed the colors on her palette, she felt something stirring deep within, the instinctual understanding that her voice, once muffled by doubt, was finally approaching a crescendo. Grouping her ideas, a thread of inspiration emerged that hinted at a deeper purpose, one that might extend beyond her personal journey. What lay ahead would demand not just artistry, but absolute courage. And standing at the cusp of creation, she realized the reckoning promised to be louder than she ever anticipated. Would she find strength to silence the voices of doubt and truly embrace her destiny? As the days slipped through her fingers like sand, Sarah began to feel the weight of anticipation settle heavily on her chest. She had surrendered herself wholly to her work, yet the deeper she delved into her art, the more daunting the implications became. Each stroke on the canvas seemed to reveal not only her struggles, but also the shadows of her mother's life, intertwining their stories in a manner that felt both liberating and suffocating. She awoke each morning to the soft glow of daylight, the sun peering through her curtained window like an inquisitive friend. But underneath the gleam of morning light, apprehension gnawed at her. What would happen when her vulnerabilities laid bare met the outside world? Would it draw forth understanding, or would it incite scorn? After several long days and sleepless nights driven by an inner compulsion to create, she caught a fleeting glimpse of herself in the reflection of the window. Her eyes, once clouded with uncertainty, now gleamed with an intensity she hadn't recognized in a long time. This was her truth to share. The moment of clarity overcame her fears as she stood at the precipice of her revelation. Fueled by an adrenaline rush, Sarah mingled her doubts with boldness, diving back into the world of her canvas. Each painting took on a life of its own, a symphony of emotions that begged her to confront the anger, love, truth, and shame she felt. As she layered colors and textures, her understanding of both herself and her mother deepened in unexpected ways. One crisp evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she stood in front of her easel, eyes locked onto a particularly evocative piece that had sprung forth from her turmoil. It depicted a phoenix rising from vibrant ashes, symbolizing rebirth and resilience. She reflected on her mother's struggles, grasping the duality of pain and triumph, the very essence of survival. Suddenly, in the midst of her artistic meditation, the door rattled slightly. Tom peeked in, his presence a soft anchor amidst her tempestuous thoughts. "Can I come in?" he asked cautiously. "Of course," she replied, drawing a steadying breath. He stepped inside, a hesitant smile playing across his lips as he surveyed her progress. "This is incredible. You're really channeling something powerful here," he commented, looking genuinely impressed. Yet beneath his admiration, Sarah sensed the weight of his unvoiced concerns. "Does it seem chaotic?" she queried, feeling the need for external validation, even if just for a heartbeat. "It feels raw and authentic," he admitted, his brow furrowing slightly. "But truth isn't always easy for people to accept, you know." There was again the specter of doubt lurking in their conversations. But now, instead of retreating, she leaned into it. "That's exactly why it needs to be shared. If I don't confront it, it will always haunt me and perhaps everyone else who has suffered similarly." He nodded slowly, admiration blending with trepidation. Sometimes the most important truths need the safest surroundings. Just remember to brace yourself for the unexpected. "Tom, this is my unexpected. This is my power," she asserted, the fierceness of her words surprising even herself. As he nodded in acknowledgement, Sarah felt a rush of empowerment infusing her work. No longer was she tethered to a legacy of silence. She was the author of her own narrative, and every brush stroke propelled her toward an unveiling she'd long avoided. But the night that followed pulled her back to a reality fraught with uncertainty. An internal tug-of-war began to unfold, a conflict between progress and fear. She knew she was on the cusp of revealing her most profound self, and the thought ignited a turbulent debate within her. Was she truly ready for this? Did she possess the strength to withstand the wild currents of truth? As she grappled with these introspective battles, another thought flickered like a strobe light. Could her voice resonate beyond her personal struggles, creating ripples that challenged the very fabric of her community as perceptions? With clarity came the realization that this was more than an artistic endeavor. It was a mission to confront every voice that had been drowned out, every story silenced. There were echoes of previous pain in the background, and it was her moment to allow them to sing boldly, harmoniously. As she stepped back once more from her canvas, heart racing with possibilities, she felt the presence of her mother's spirit guiding her, each brushstroke vibrating with newfound purpose. But somewhere deep down, a sense of fear lingered, wrapped around her resolve, a question whispering through the recesses of her mind. Would embracing this journey illuminate the way toward liberation, or would she find herself ensnared by the consequences of her truth? Tomorrow, she would have to decide whether to step into the spotlight and face the world with her narrative in hand. The moment of choice loomed ever closer, an inevitable confrontation that beckoned her forth. What remained uncertain was what or who she would encounter when the revelation finally arrived. As dawn broke, Sarah's thoughts felt like the crashing waves on a rocky shore, fierce and unpredictable. She had wrestled with her decision throughout the night, her inner monologue turning over the various possibilities like a painter contemplating a blank canvas. The clash of fear and ambition tugged at her, each pull shaping her resolve in unexpected ways. Looking at her latest painting, the phoenix still loomed large in her mind. It represented not just rebirth, but also the necessity of sacrifice to rise anew. A vibrant palette of reds and yellows contrasted starkly against the darkness surrounding it, much like the conflict within her heart. Today, she must confront her fears head-on, not just in her art, but in the broader scope of her existence. She dressed methodically, her movements almost ritualistic. In the mirror, she stared into her own reflection, seeking answers in the depths of her eyes. You are more than what has been, she whispered, a mantra to bolster her courage. Each word was a stone, building a bridge that would take her across the chasm of self-doubt. Reinforced by determination, she headed to her studio, knowing this day would redefine who she was and who she could be. As she entered the bright space, the air buzzed with creativity, yet today it felt different, charged with an electric anticipation. She approached her easel, and the brush felt heavy in her hand. Every stroke that followed was deliberate, as if she were carving her identity into existence. With every flourish of paint, she fortified the essence of her message, authenticity. Time slipped away as she painted, each color channeling stories that bubbled to the surface of anger at her mother's struggles and a deep-seated yearning for understanding. It was an intense process, requiring her to tear through layers of her psyche like an archaeologist unearthing buried truths. Yet, relief flowed with each revelation, as if drowning the doubts that had lingered for far too long. The door creaked open, and Tom's familiar voice broke her concentration. "Sarah, are you in there?" He stepped inside, a concerned look painted across his face. "I thought I'd check on you. You were gone for quite a while. Are you okay?" Her instinct was to mask her whirlwind of emotions, but she sensed the need for transparency. "I'm working through things. It's a lot," she admitted, her voice wavering slightly. Tom moved closer, his eyes scanning her canvas. "This is beautiful, but are you okay to share it?" For a moment, doubt flickered across her mind, an unwelcome visitor coaxing her to retreat back into silence. But the voice urging her toward expression felt far stronger. "I need to share it, with or without certainty," she asserted. "That's the point of this." Tom's face softened, recognition dawning on him. "So, you're really going to do it? You're going to put your truth out there for everyone to see?" The gravity of his words sent a chill down her spine. She was teetering on the edge of a cliff, ready to leap into the unknown. "Yes, and that frightens me. But keeping this art to myself would be a disservice not only to me, but to those who might feel the same way." He stepped back, consideration brewing in his eyes. "You understand that truths can tear people down sometimes? They can break hearts. Your story comes with an inherent risk." Fear twisted strangely in Sarah's chest, yet she found strength in her vulnerability. "But isn't that what makes it real? If there's no risk, there's no growth." This was her evolution unfolding piece by piece. A sudden stillness enveloped the space, a mutual acknowledgement of the crossroads they stood upon. What would her revelation mean, not just for her, but for those who encountered her truths? After an exhale laden with possibilities, Sarah felt an unexpected sense of calm wash over her. Stepping closer to her canvas once more, she added the final touches, sealing her vulnerability within the colors for all to witness. The act transformed her fear into a beacon of courage, illuminating the path forward. As the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the room in shimmering golds, Sarah knew she was prepared to face the world. But just as she began to weigh how to break through the silence surrounding her revelation, a single text from a stranger lit up her phone screen, a hint of the trepidation waiting to greet her. "I've heard about your art. Are you ready for what's coming?" Her heart raced again, fueled by a startling blend of excitement and apprehension. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one that would demand everything from her. And as the shadows lengthened in her studio, she braced herself for what lay ahead. The moment when her story would the very heartbeat of her truth find its voice. What awaited her on the other side of that leap into the unknown? Sarah's palms were slick with perspiration as she stared at the glowing screen of her phone. The words scrawled across it felt like an incantation, both invoking and warning her. She could almost feel the rippling energy around her, the possibilities of what could unfold in the days to come. With a shaky breath, she set her phone aside and turned back to her canvas, readying herself for an emotional avalanche. The bold strokes of paint shimmered in the dying light, reflecting her inner tumult. This moment was not merely the culmination of her artistic representation. It was a gateway to her evolving self. What did it mean to truly share one's story? The fundamental values she held had never felt so precarious. She often avoided conflict, preferring the safety of silence over the noise of confrontation. But today, she stood firm against that instinct, knowing that the very act of revealing her truth was a rebellion against her past. Unraveling her story had become as necessary as breathing. It begged the question, what would life be like if she chose authenticity over acceptance? Stepping back, she assessed the vibrant chaos of her painting. This was more than just colors on a canvas to her. It was a raw memory filled with fragile stories that threaded through her life. The phoenix rising was not merely symbolic, it was her mantra. It beckoned her to rise and transform, daring her to step into the arena. With every brushstroke, she could hear the whispers of self-doubt. You'll be criticized. You'll face rejection. Your art isn't good enough. Yet beneath that cacophony simmered a louder voice. Your voice matters. Your journey is worth sharing. This internal duality drove her forward. She gathered her courage, realizing that she could not just confront her fears, but would need to embrace them, nurture them into something beautiful. She recalled Tom's cautionary words about vulnerability, but instead of retreating, they sparked a sense of urgency. What followed could be the affirmation she'd long yearned for, the recognition that she existed beyond the confines of her insecurities. As darkness settled outside, the soft hum of a cool breeze entered through the open window, tinged with the scent of freshly mown grass. It brought with it thoughts of freedom and possibilities. Sarah picked up her phone, feeling its weight shift her perspective. With trembling hands, she typed a response to the enigmatic stranger. I'm ready to face whatever comes. Let us talk. Once sent, a wave of both relief and trepidation crashed over her. That one message was a commitment, a promise to herself that transformation was not about waiting for the right moment, but creating it. No longer would she allow life's uncertainties to inhibit her progress. After sealing her decision, she turned her focus back to her painting. The canvas awaited her, ready to absorb her emotions and amplify her message. She pushed the boundaries of the vision she had nurtured, layering her fears under vibrancy and light. As exhaustion and exhilaration melded into the night, the studio felt more alive than ever. Her intuition tuned into the rhythm of her brush strokes, each one resonating with a newfound hope. The artwork was shaping into something greater, far beyond her own understanding. She couldn't afford to second-guess herself now. The ripple effect of her actions loomed large, feeding her ambition and excitement for the future. It was not simply a painting. It was the launch pad of her voice. In that moment, she recognized that every brushstroke held the power to ignite change, not just for her, but perhaps for others too. Suddenly, the weight of her choices pressed in again. Would vulnerability breed acceptance? Or would it expose her to a world unready for the honest narrative of her life? Visibly shaken, Sarah stared again at her phone. Anticipation and anxiety bubbled within her, igniting every corner of her being. She could already sense that everything was about to shift dramatically. The echoes of her heart beckoned her toward the next step and reminded her, too. Share one's truth could be both daunting and liberating. Just as she began to breathe deeply, a new notification pinged, illuminating the darkness like a spark in the night. Let us chat about your art. The world is waiting. Her heart pounded. She realized it was time to face the world with everything she had ever desired, now tangibly within reach. But was she truly prepared for the repercussions of exposing herself so intimately? Sarah stood frozen, her heart racing as her eyes flickered over the words on the screen. The notification had stirred something deep within her, an insistent push urging her to respond. Yet, doubt clawed at her mind, reshaping her thoughts into a dizzying spiral. Was it truly the right time? Could she handle the scrutiny that would surely follow? She took a breath, grounding herself in the present. The aroma of oil paint lingered in the air, a bittersweet reminder of her resolve. Each stroke on the canvas was a testament to her courage, to her desire to embrace the world flaws and all. Sarah glanced at her painting, still drawing comfort from its dynamic intensity. It was more than just a representation of her emotions. It was a declaration, a manifesto of who she was and who she aspired to become. In the midst of the chaos, a thought anchored her. Vulnerability was not merely a risk. It was a pathway to growth. If she shied away from expressing herself, she would remain trapped in a cycle of unfulfilled potential. The very act of sharing her voice would, she hoped, resonate beyond her own insecurities and touch others in ways she couldn't yet fully grasp. Determined, she brought her fingers back to the screen. "I'd love to chat," she typed, the words feeling like a magical incantation that might spell her liberation. As she pressed send, a profound sense of clarity washed over her. It felt like a door swinging open, letting light pour into shadowed corners of her existence. But as relief coursed through her veins, a new weight sank in. This was an invitation to exposure. She could already picture people studying her work, dissecting her journey, and by extension, her vulnerabilities. The fear of judgment reared its head, clawing its way into her thoughts. Would they appreciate her raw honesty or reject it outright? That night, sleep eluded her. Each tick of the clock felt like a drumbeat, echoing her anxieties, but it also fed an ember of curiosity. What if this conversation could unlock new opportunities, new avenues for exploration? What if they could see the depths of her struggles and triumphs? And it would spark conversations that echoed her intention to fight the complacency she felt for so long. As dawn peeked through her studio windows, Sarah approached her canvas with renewed purpose. She wasn't merely painting. She was laying down the foundation of her narrative, a story of transformation that could resonate with others. The thought energized her, pushing her to insert deeper shades of emotion, to work with the play of light and shadow, not just physically, but metaphorically. In that way, she poured herself into the form. Later that day, her phone buzzed again. "Let's meet tomorrow to discuss your vision for the exhibition," read the message. The word exhibition sent her heart racing, for she realized the stakes were much higher than she had initially conceived. Time seemed to stretch as anticipation gripped her. Her mind jumped to the potential this opportunity had, the chance to share not just her artwork, but the person behind it, the raw, unaltered story of Sarah. Yet, thoughts of possible rejection flooded her senses, reminding her of the barriers she'd erected against dishonesty and pain. She knew she had to fight against these overwhelming fears. Facing her vulnerabilities could either bind her to a life of silence or liberate her voice. And somehow, despite every shrill thought that screamed for her to hide, she chose to confront the world head-on. Pacing the room, she wondered what would happen at the meeting. Would they appreciate the depth and authenticity she planned to bring? How would they react to her bold confession that her art was her voice, one that spoke to personal experiences, growth, and the struggle of vulnerability? As the day crept toward dusk, Sarah felt the walls of her comfort zone beginning to dissolve. She picked up a brush, envisioning vibrant strokes that would convey her truth. Each gesture was a rebellion against the fear still whispering within her. The finality of the meeting echoed in her mind, the weight of its significance settling comfortably on her shoulders. You are not a mere artist. You are a storyteller. But as she dipped the brush into paint one last time, a flicker of doubt nagged at her. Could revealing her truth genuinely transform not only her journey, but the lives of others? Those lingering uncertainties formed the edges of her excitement. And as she worked, she prepared herself not just for the conversation that loomed, but for the unexpected consequences of stepping into the vulnerability she had once feared. The moment was approaching, and everything was about to shift again in ways she could scarcely imagine. Would this be her opportunity for a voice that resonated, or just another brushstroke lost in the chaos of acceptability? The sun rose brilliantly over the horizon, casting a warm glow that crept into Sarah's studio, illuminating her latest masterpiece. This painting had morphed into more than just art. It embodied her renewed identity and plans for tomorrow. With each layer of pigment, she de-woven her past into a tapestry of resilience. Clarity emerging from the initial chaos she felt upon beginning it. In preparation for the upcoming meeting, she reflected on every hard-fought revelation that had brought her to this moment. No longer would she be paralyzed by fear, uncertain of her worth. She had embarked on a journey not only to reclaim her family's legacy, but also to claim her rightful place as a creator who could convey the nuances of pain and triumph through her art. Tom had become a solid ally throughout this transformation, his complicity healing the wounds left by shared pasts. The day before, he brought coffee and encouragement that felt like a lifeline. "Believe in your story," he urged, and she clung to those words like precious treasures, her inner voice echoing back, "I am worthy. My voice matters." As the clock counted down to the meeting, Sarah imagined stepping into the gallery, her heart racing with potential. She envisioned the audience gazing intently at her pieces, seeing the complexities painted on canvas that spoke to the hearts of the misrepresented. Suddenly, her aspirations sparked an exhilarating anxiety as she grasped that this was not just about her. It was about everyone who had struggled against misunderstanding. The gallery buzzed like an electric current as she arrived. She was immediately struck by the variety of faces gathered there, some familiar, some unknown. But each one resonated with the shared experience of seeking refuge or acknowledgement in their lives. From the corner of her eye, she noticed the head curator, eager to dive into her work. "Sarah, your pieces are stunning," he began, his admiration palpable. "I'm excited to hear what you envision for the exhibition." With a composed yet vibrant energy pulsing through her, she stepped forward, pooling her courage. "Thank you. I want to showcase a narrative that goes beyond the surface. My art tells a deeply personal story of conflict, redemption, and identity, drawing from the legacy left behind by my family. It's a raw portrayal of what we creatively fight against every day." Her voice steadied as she shared her vision, weaving stories of her mother into the fabric of her work, illuminating the truth that she kept hidden for so long. She described the phoenix, representing her mother's resilience and the painful stereotypes intertwined with their family's history, all the while her hands painted vivid pictures, emphasizing her passion. "What I aim to do is evoke empathy, inviting viewers to question their assumptions and to truly see beyond the narratives they've been taught," she asserted, her conviction reverberating through the room. The curator nodded thoughtfully, the excitement in the air palpable as he began to see the depth of Sarah's vision. "You've articulated something powerful here, Sarah. It's courageous to confront your story directly, and we would love to showcase this in our next exhibition. Audiences need to hear this." At that moment, an immense wave of pride surged within her. There it was, acknowledgement, validation, and a solid step forward into her newfound identity. The fears that had once shadowed her felt diminished, stripped of their power. She was not just seeking acceptance anymore. She had transformed into an architect of her narrative. Conversations ensued. Details were forged as connections bloomed. Each interaction left her feeling more assured. Her past no longer a weight, but a foundation upon which she now stood tall. With every exchange, she could see glimmers of progress, not just for herself, but for others who echoed her experience. This was about finding voices beyond her own. Hours slipped by as laughter and camaraderie filled the room, engulfing her in a feeling she had once thought intangible. It was as if all the doubts and questions she carried were successfully unraveling. No longer was she merely an artist. She was a catalyst for change, armed with insightful strokes capable of rippling through the community. As the evening drew to a close, Sarah received words of support from those who wandered through her exhibit. Their reactions, enlightening and affirming, wrapped around her like a warm embrace. For the first time, she could see her art as a bridge between herself and a world craving understanding. Driving home that night, Sarah gripped the steering wheel, deep satisfaction anchoring her heart. She had not simply achieved a milestone, but had stepped into her identity, woven with acceptance and accomplishment. It was the dawning of a new chapter and narrative where fears transformed into resilient wings, each stroke not just preserving her mother-esque legacy, but resurrecting it. With renewed clarity formed within her, Sarah realized that tomorrow would be the beginning of many discussions, of her voice finding harmony in countless hearts. This was her moment to shine, and she was ready to take on the world. Remember to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is a vital element of nurturing personal overcoming stories.